campaign manager. She's here, and she probably can tell you more than me about some answers. But I will tell you about Ed. About 2.5 years ago, he was asked, people came to him and asked him to run for office. And the very first thing I said was, well, you told him no. And he said, well, I told him I'd think about it. And so we did a lot of thinking, we did a lot of praying. We even met with our preacher about it. And I was like, wow, a good, honest Christian man want to get into, isn't that what we want? I mean, isn't that who we want there? And so why not start at home? And that's kind of how we got to where we are today. And I finally went to him and said, well, honey, by the way, we've been married 42 years. I said, honey, I've decided that I'm going to vote for you. And he said, well, I appreciate that. And I said, I think every woman ought to vote for her ex-husband. But that was 2.5 years ago. So I want you to know I'm all on board. I'm all behind him. I support him 100%. And I will tell you that God comes first in his life. He doesn't get out of bed without saying a prayer. He doesn't go to bed without saying a prayer. And I know that that's number one in his heart. His family is second, and everything else is next. But I know what he gives to the Lord, and I know what he gives to our family. So I know what he'll give if he's elected to be your senator. And he's out working every day from morning till night. And when we first started out, I said, Ed, this kind of reminds me of when you got your first motorcycle. He got it, and he put on all the leather and the helmet, and he revved up the motor, and he pulled out of the driveway. And I just almost got sick at my stomach. And so I, like a good wife ought to do, I jumped in the car and went behind him with my flashers on. And that's kind of the way, and that is a true story. The one time he's really been mad at me probably since we've been married. And that's kind of the way we started this, very carefully and cautiously. But now I really feel like the flashers are out front saying, here we come, because we're both on board. And Ed's a wonderful man, and it's time for me to close up. So I ask you for your support, I ask you for your prayers. And I'll do my best to answer any questions for my husband, Republican, conservative, Christian, Ed Jackson.
Thank you.
I've got one thing I was going to ask him. Will he agree to debate with me at Union University? Dr. Evans is waiting to hear from him to set up a debate. Will he agree to do that, do you think?
Mr. Lane, that totally depends upon his schedule. He is so busy every minute, I hardly have time to talk to him. In fact, somebody asked me, or told me the other day they were seeing my husband that night. I said, tell him I said hi. So I can't answer that, but I know his schedule is just
if it's not important,
this
then
weekend.
it's
I
not
went to
going to
see
show up. But if
grandchildren
it's important, he'll
to
make time.
get away. He couldn't go. He can't look. He's in the middle of something that's very important to him, and he won't leave it.
Fair enough. I'll go to where he is. Well, that's right. Is that fair enough? Where will he be in the next 4 weeks? I'll go wherever he's at.
Would you give me a time? You know, Mr. Lamb, Ed's just out working hard, and Ed's getting ahead by doing this, not standing back waiting for you. He's going to go ahead and go where he needs to go.
So you're saying you won't debate?
I'm not saying yes or no. I'm saying with his time schedule, I doubt it. And I don't know why. I mean, he's working to get the attention for himself. I don't see any reason for him to share it.
Fair enough.
Yes, ma'am.
How does your husband feel about Medicaid expansion?
Is that a Bonnie question?
It's not really a really huge topic that we really honestly discussed. Just because the number one thing is jobs and job creation. West Tennessee's been left behind. We have discussed it. Some, I know that he's against expansion. That's part of it.
Like I said, Bonnie knows better. I can tell you about my grandchildren and my work. And Ed and I aren't always together because we're both so busy. So we go in different directions a lot. So.
And by the way, if you don't have insurance and you're very sick,
then it is a big deal. So you may not think it's a big deal, but for people who are uninsured, it's a big deal.
Well, people have opportunities.
So don't say jobs are the
Well,
only
there's an
big deal.
exchange program, correct, right now in
Medicare,
Tennessee,
there's-
that you can get healthcare.
Oh, that's what we're paying.
Yeah, we did. We passed that in the legislature.
See, they know that. I don't, I'm sorry. I wish I did. I'll try.
Do you think it's fair for your husband to be wanting to be a big part on the education committee at the state level without having any of your kids going to public education?
I'm sorry. All three of my children went to public education.
Really?
And to private education. I had one graduate from Northside and two graduate from USJ, but the other two did go to public school as well.
Oh, okay.
In fact, they all had, they all went to Pope. Actually, Pope was a wonderful public school. So I don't know where you got your information. That's
I'm-
incorrect.
Sorry, I was wrong on that.
It's okay. Anything else?
Have y'all talked about same-sex marriage?
We hadn't talked about much sex at all lately, Mary Beth. I mean, Mary Jo, I tell you, we've been so busy campaigning.
Well, we know of one reason why same-sex marriage affects traditional marriages.
I don't know a reason that it affects it. I do not.
And do you know what his position would be when legislation is brought to the General Assembly?
I can't say for sure, but I know it does believe in one man, one woman.
Well, so why would that be the case if you don't know how same-sex marriage would affect traditional marriage, even one little bit?
Well, I don't know how it affected, but
I thought that there were kids over at school.
I don't know. I just can't answer that. I'm really sorry. I just know that Ed lives in one man, one wife, and that's the way we've always been for 42 years.
Well, and so if you're a gay couple, you can't be married. You can't inherit, you can't have coverage for your spouse.
Can you, Jimmy? You know that better than I do. Can you have coverage for your spouse? I don't think so right now, can you?
No.
Okay, that's what, I don't think
So
so.
why is that right?
Here again, I'm sorry. That's,
Why
we're
did
just,
you say-
we're on the road to get there, trying to get there. What's there in place now, we have nothing to do with. But I
mean,
know.
it's fine if he wants to be married to a woman, that's
Mhm.
fine. He did a good job, picked somebody with brains, you know, he did a good job, okay? But just because he wants to be married to a woman, why does that mean everybody else has to have a traditional marriage? If it doesn't affect your marriage?
Marilyn, in the state of Tennessee, there is a constitutional amendment that was passed by the voters of this state, outlawing.
We know all of that, that's not the issue.
Well, that's the law.
Okay, slavery was the law. Shall we go back to slavery?
That was overturned by the Supreme Court.
Yeah, and thank goodness, or otherwise we probably still have slaves in this stupid state. So it's the same people that you're talking about who will not let our legislators vote for same-sex marriage because they're too
People voted
afraid.
for the constitutional amendment. Did they not?
Yeah.
Can overturn amendments.
Is that it? Thank you so much. Next we'll hear from Randy Lamb.
I feel a little bit at a disadvantage with Ed not being here because I certainly don't want to appear like I'm picking on his wife. My name's Randy Lamb. I wouldn't pick on you anyway. My name's Randy Lamb. I'm a father of 3 children, grandfather of 1. My 2 daughters are sitting over there along with my wife, one of his husband, boyfriend. I was a former engineer. I'm a church elder, Sunday school teacher for the past, 40 years. Valedictorian in my high school class. Got a degree in electrical engineering with honors from Memphis State. got a law degree later. I've been involved in literacy, child abuse prevention, foster care, psych services, children and youth, and faith matters for the better part of my adult life. I've given a lot back to the community, even though you don't get paid for those kinds of things. I think that's part of what we've got to do. 3 minutes is not a long time for an attorney to talk, as you well know. So I'm willing to stay here as long as you want me to tonight after this is over and ask any question you put to me. I will give you an answer to your questions because I believe you deserve that. I'm not a puppet. Nobody pulls my strings. I don't have a handler. I don't have a speechwriter. I don't have a coach. I don't stick my finger in my mouth and get it wet and pop it up in the air to decide what's right and what's wrong. I don't have money coming into my campaign for as far away as Texas telling me what we need to do with our Tennessee schools. And I don't need anybody's permission to say what I'm going to say tonight and give you the answers that I think you deserve. What's down in the well of my soul will come up in the bucket of my mouth. And I can promise you that. And I've already asked Ms. Jackson, and I think the public deserves that Ed and I appear on the same stage somewhere sometime before the election. I think that's important for people to be able to make their mind, even though apparently they don't think so. I'm going to give you some of my position on the issues, and I'm not going to give you a lot of my reasons for it, but you can ask me those questions if you want to on your time. On Medicaid expansion, I'm for it. I'm for lowering the limits on pseudoephedrine so we can get our meth problem under control, regardless of what the pharmaceutical companies want us to do. I am passionately for public education. I'm against vouchers and charter schools that are taking away from public education and try to make it something that might make it a farm team for big business, and all it can possibly do is provide jobs for low-wage workers. I think public education we're required by the Constitution to provide it. I want to do that. I'm against all 4 constitutional amendments. I'm for wine in the stores. I believe in treating small businesses like we do with large corporations and give them tax incentives and money like everything else. I'm not like some of the candidates and pick out 2 or 3 constitutional amendments and say I'm for them. I'm a lawyer. I'm taking an oath to support and defend the Constitution and all of the amendments. I don't have a luxury of picking a few that I agree with. My name is Randy Lamb. I'm not a sacrificial lamb. I am not a timid lamb, and I'll be a lamb that'll go toe-to-toe with any elephant in the room, including Mr. Fincher's representative back there if he would choose to take the stage. I won't be just another country club legislator. If you'll let me, I'll be your state senator, and I'll put you first, but to do that, you've got to put me first. Now, your questions. Sure, Jenny?
I just have a question. Why do you always want to just debate my dad when there's 2 other candidates running?
Well, they're not here. Well, I don't want to debate somebody that's not here.
No, but
It's not in. I'll debate all 4 of them. That's okay. I think we all 4 should be on the stage.
Your focus is on Ed, so that's why I was wondering, because there are 2 more candidates.
What do you mean my focus? I only said that one time today.
I heard it, you were sitting there, you said it a few times.
Oh, you heard it twice. Okay. Well, Mr. Baxter and Mr. York, that's fine. I think the public ought to hear from us all. I don't think they can make an informed decision without it. That's fine. If he will debate me and it takes those other 2 with us, I'm all for it. If he'll debate me without them, I'm all for that too. You have some others, you got a book there. You have others? Okay.
No.
Anybody else?
Equal rights amendment.
Equal rights amendment, I'm for it. And I'm for the, I don't think there's any reason in the world that gay people ought to be discriminated against in this country. They are entitled to equal protection under the law. I do, however, I'm a Christian. I look at everything in my life through my Christian values. Not everything legal is moral, and not everything moral is legal. But everybody in this country is entitled to the same rights as everybody else. And if you don't believe that, you don't believe in this country. Anybody else? Yes, sir.
Explain your views on education as far as the charter schools and the voucher system.
I believe charter schools, number 1, vouchers. To me, that's taking public money out of private education and supporting a private education system. I'm okay with charter schools in a very limited sense. But the charter schools is an experiment. They get to pick and choose their students just like private schools do. They don't have to take kids with handicaps. They don't have to take problem children. What they can do is send those problem children and those children with handicaps back into the public school system when they're causing a problem. Anybody that can pick and choose their students or their team or their band can have a better team or a better group of students than than if you have to take everybody that walks in off the streets. Our public school teachers are doing a wonderful job. They're blamed for everything, and I believe in part so that we can dehumanize, dismantle public education, to basically make it something like we're doing with the federal government. We're privatizing our military. We don't call them soldiers anymore. We call them, what do we call them? Contractors. It's kind of like we don't hunt anymore. We cultivate or harvest animals. We change the wording to make it palatable. We believe in capital punishment in this country, and if we could change that word, we'd call it legal killing, because that's what it is. If we want to have capital punishment, why don't we have it where the public can see what happens to it? Why make it look like it is a medical procedure done on a gurney, so we'll feel better about what we're doing. But public education is very important to me. I went, all my children went. I don't think I would be where I am today without public education. And if you gave me enough time, I could list for you every public education teacher I ever had. And I honestly don't think I ever had a bad one. I know there are bad ones out there. There are bad mechanics, there are bad lawyers, there are bad doctors. But we got to quit beating up on the people that take care of our kids. They see those children for maybe 6 hours a day. They don't know what home environment they came from. They don't know whether they ate. They don't know whether or not they had sleep. They don't know if anybody helped them with their homework. And you can't do in 6 hours or undo in 6 hours what somebody else did to a child in 18. So let's get off their back and give them some praise for the good work that they do. Anybody else?
Mr. Lynn, who did you vote for in the presidential election last election?
I voted for Barack Obama twice, and if he was running again, I'd vote for him again. If Bill Clinton was running, I'd vote for him again. I think they're two of the smartest men we've ever had in office. I don't agree with everything they did. I don't agree with some of their morality, but they're thinkers. Most voters want bumper stickers and slogans when what they really need are position papers, because the world is not a place that's all black and white. Most of the world is gray. Most of the people that are against abortion are that way until their wife is raped or their daughter is raped, and then they come to lawyers like me and Ms. Middlebrooks and they want to know, how can we get a legal abortion now? When somebody shoves that shoe on your foot, it's different. Don't tell me it's not. I know from practice, I know from life. We all too often agree with very absolutes, but when they happen to you, it's a little different.
How do you feel about Amendment 1 then?
I'm against Amendment 1. I believe in the sanctity of life with all my heart. I don't even agree with capital punishment. I believe only what God gives and God take away. But I don't want Jimmy Elledge. If my wife or my daughter is raped, I don't want him deciding whether or not they have to have that pregnancy. He will never be raped and have a baby. He will never be raped and have a child. He will not have to pay for that hospitalization. He will not have to raise that child. He is not the person to decide what happens to my wife. And if it were to happen to your daughter, as good looking as she is, I bet you $100 she'd change her tune. Anybody else? Oh, you got another question? Eugenie, you got it. Go ahead.
It's not a question, it's just a matter of fact that 3% of abortions are from rape in the state of Tennessee.
Okay, and that's fine. The constitutional amendment doesn't provide any protection for women that are raped. No protection at all. It gives the legislature total control over that issue. Now, the legislature last session passed a bill that any John Doe can walk around carrying a gun. They passed a bill that any John Doe can walk around carrying a switchblade knife. They passed a bill that it's okay to violate or disapprove of the federal law, and we're going to go back and relitigate the Civil War. I don't want the legislature, including me, in your bedroom and wound deep in your heart. We fuss, and the Republicans do it all the time. They don't want anybody to affect what they carry on their hip, but they want to crawl inside a woman's body in her womb and decide what happens to it. There's something a little wrong with that.
Amendment 1 does not.
Amendment 1 gives the legislature the total control over that issue. Doesn't provide any exceptions for anything.
She can still have an abortion if she chooses. Amendment 1 does
got-
not.
Then why are we having the amendment to start with?
Poor women don't.
Why are we having the amendment to start with if we don't need it then?
Oh, I definitely think we do.
Well, then what you're saying is it's going to accomplish something that you think it should accomplish, right?
Absolutely.
Okay, and that's ending abortions, right?
It won't end in abortions. It would be fine with me if it did, because of my faith.
I think it's fine with you, I think it's fine with you now. I think it's fine with you now. And if you could, if your daughter or your granddaughter got raped at 12 and you could live with that, that's fine, but everybody's not as good and humbled and able to carry through with what you can do. Don't put your saddle on somebody else's horse until you know what it's like. That's my philosophy anyway. You don't like it, you don't have to vote for me.
I have counseled people that have.
Well, I counsel them both ways. I can tell you they're both out there. And it's a horrible situation. Let me tell you this. In 1972, 5 Republican judges, along with 2 Democrats, gave us Roe versus Wade. And they've been trying to they've been dealing with it ever since then. They had 2 terms of Ronald Reagan with 1 George Bush tacked on top of it. They didn't get rid of it. Republicans don't want that issue to go away, because if it goes away, if gay marriage goes away, we're going to start looking at jobs, unemployment, Social Security, immigration, and we're going to start looking at all the issues that really matter. It would tickle me to death if Democrats could get together and have a moratorium on those God, gays, and guns issues for 3 years, and then we could address the issues that matter to most Americans. But we're not going to do that because it doesn't pay. Anybody else? Can I have a little flyer, please? And I'm not going to blame anybody for this. It's kind of cute. I got this in the mail the other day. Had something like it when I was in the 7th grade. Shows me as a wolf. It says, I'm too liberal for this, too liberal for that. Quotes my position on education wrongly. It says I'm too extreme on the death penalty. It says I'm against the 10 Commandments. And it says what you want to about abortion. If you got any questions about any of those things tonight and my positions on any of them, I'll handle those too. And if you need to do another mailing, Tennessee Republican Party, I got some crayons for you to help you. Any other questions? If you elect me your state senator, you're not going to get another rubber stamp in Nashville. Why would you want to send one more Republican up there? They have a supermajority already. They listen to their own publicity. They hear their own stuff. That's what happens when we don't have good divided government with parity. You listen and you read your own press releases. A choir of all altos wouldn't sound good. A choir with all basses would not sound good. A choir with all tenors wouldn't sound good. And a lily-white Republican legislature is not good for Tennessee. They want to go red to the roots. So do the communists. When we take away anything that gives us a say on the other side, I believe we're losing our liberty. I think it was Niemöller that said something one time. He said, and it was about World War II, and I'm not equating the communists or with Republicans, but listen to this, and I won't quote it exactly right. But he said something to the effect that when they came for the trade unionists, I didn't speak out because I wasn't a trade unionist. And then they came for another group, and he didn't speak out because he wasn't one of those. And then they came for another group, and nobody spoke out because he wasn't one of those. And then they came for him, and there was nobody to speak out. You send me to Nashville, I'll speak out for you. I will represent you to the best of my abilities. I'm not interested in being a country club legislator. I'm 59 years old, and I got some fire left in me. Take me up there and see what happens. Thank you very much. Got any other questions? I don't mind. And if you want me to stay, I'll deal with the others. I'll be here when you get ready to
Next up, Scott Golden, representing Congressman Stephen Fincher.
Does anybody find the irony that we're in a comedy club? Has everybody commented on that already? Yeah, we got that already? Good, that's the first part. Eldridge was first, so I figured that was. First of all, everybody deserves a big round of applause for getting in the arena. This is not an easy business, and this is not an easy time. In fact, I just left Senator Carter. I know you were with him today. Senator Carter to the 75th birthday this evening. And you talk about somebody that ran for the state senate from this district in 1986. So it is a lifelong commitment and a lifelong passion, and everybody deserves to be applauded for them getting involved in it. But I know I have a couple of minutes, and I'm not even sure if anybody's here that's involved in the Fincher campaign or in the 8th district race, but I will speak to you just a little bit as your member of Congress. Congressman Fincher, as most of you know, I give his background, ran in 2010, was elected, currently serves on the House Committee of Agriculture and the House Committee on Financial Services, and represents the 705,000 people in the 8th Congressional District of Tennessee, which runs from the University of Memphis to Paris Landing State Park, and everywhere in between. So it's an interesting district. A lot of moving parts to it. I think I know a lot of folks in this room, and I know Mr. Lamb, I don't think we've ever met, but I do know that Lynn Fincher used to work for you for a time, and so heard a lot of good things about you. So the Finchers are in Crockett County, and I think everybody kind of knows the story from Frog Jump, and kind of coming to the time when our country was in a pretty bad shape in 2010. Everybody felt that we needed a different direction and ultimately changed. I don't believe that everything has been accomplished in Washington, and it is Congressman Fincher has been frustrated that there's not as much done that needs to get done. But I think you find the issues that you work on, and you try to see some success in some areas. He is actually one of the very few members of Congress that's actually passed a bill in the last 3 years, which is called the Jobs Bill. And there have been some other issues that he's worked on, some of the things that we've done, the Farm Bill, a lot of reauthorizations, FAA, etc. So with that, I'll say we've enjoyed representing the area. We certainly look forward to doing it for a couple more years, and I'll take any questions that you may have. Come on now. I gotta have one.
Too fast.
So Medicaid expansion's been talked. Let me go ahead. So Medicaid expansion, look, so I want everybody to know. So the deal was with the Affordable Care Act is that it has been offered to the states for 2 years at 90%. And in the third year, it goes down to 70%. And there have been no provisions by the federal government to pay for the expanded Medicaid after the third year. Am I right?
No.
Well, what is it? What's the number?
I believe it's 100 for the first 2 years and then 90.
90, okay.
And then 90.
190, okay.
And then it stays at 90.
As
As long as they have money, but we do that.
As long as they have money.
But we do that with other bills.
That's it. That's
Like highway bills and things like that.
Except that we have not appropriated the money, nor has it been set aside. So when you get to year number 4, it could potentially become all 100% state funded.
And then they could just not fund it here. They can back out of the Medicaid expansion.
Well,
on year
ask
4.
Governor Bredesen about the lawsuit that he went through. So some of that is obviously the lawsuit that Governor Bredesen did in order to trim the rolls for the dual eligibles. That's what he had to go through.
Yeah.
And so there would certainly be a lawsuit. So listen, as far as Medicaid expansion goes, if it's free money and that's the way it's being sold, I mean, there's nothing free. And the problem is that, and I think Governor Haslam, to his credit, has tried to work with the Obama administration to find out what provisions are available should the money not be funded in the 4th year. And to that end, both Sebelius and Berwick, is that the whoever the HHS secretary is now, apparently those negotiations are ongoing. From the federal side, it's not our decision. It's already been passed. And we've already made Congressman Fincher is pretty clear that we don't think that the Affordable Care Act is what we need to go, because unfortunately we're hearing the problems about it. And I can tell you, as somebody that has Obamacare, as a congressional staff member, I have the Affordable Care Act. I'm in the DC network. And I can tell you that some of the things that I've had to experience this year have been pretty odd.
Why don't you just get rid of it and buy your own then? It's that easy. You don't
Yes, and in fact, that's a great question, because that's what my wife and I are talking about for this year. Now, unfortunately, because of, now obviously Congressman Fincher does do that as one of the 2 or 3 members in all of Congress that does purchase his own insurance through the Farm Bureau. But I was on it prior to working to Congressman Fincher. And when unfortunately my retirement is also tied on it, so I have to be on it. Now, my wife and my kids may not. And so we're actually having to go back and look at what types of plans.
So you said you were on it before you started working for Stephen?
Yeah, I worked for Congressman Marshall Blackburn before I worked for Congressman.
You at some point thought it was a good idea, then, didn't you?
What's that?
To be on Obamacare.
No, I don't have a choice.
Oh.
I was on the federal healthcare system, which all the other federal employees in the Obama administration are on. I was on that system, once the Affordable Care Act passed, they changed the legislative branch to Obamacare.
I'm glad to see.
So I'm in the DC network.
I'm glad to see that the laws Congress is passing is applicable to Congress.
That's exactly what it
That
is.
makes us work hard.
Congressman, Senator Grassley made sure that provision is there. So yes, all members of Congress and the legislative staff are all in the DC network.
But are the other 24 states or so that have opted to expand Medicare, are they that out of the loop?
I have no idea what they're willing to sacrifice. Now, some of them, like Illinois and California, are going broke. Now, Governor House will be happy to tell you that we in Tennessee have the lowest per debt in the entire country. We don't owe anything. So California and Illinois are in an absolute terrible financial shape. And so I don't know how much risk they're willing to do, but our AAA bond rating doesn't